And then I've got my knowledge core as well, which is what you're talking about with like, all of this data that you're processing. There's 3 words that I came across just in distilling research, because I actually did do some prep for this episode on Dave's request, and it was to do with how you treat that information, and one of them is compilation. So you were talking about all your book information and trying to pull stuff from there, but when you have a big mess of data that hasn't used any sort of compilation system, you're kind of starting from scratch every single time.
You are. Every time you look at it, you go, oh shit, where am I?
So it sounds like we're going to talk about memory and context and how agents can do memory. So let me just do this.
Go down.
Could do that beat just going for a bit more like.
So cool until it cuts.
I know. Or Google VO, it's nuts for it. Like it does these 8-second clips and they're really cool, but it just doesn't understand a fade out, and so it's like it just cuts your audio. Anyway, yeah, this whole memory concept we have talked in the past. I think around back in the 90s, you had to have good folder structures for all your documents and folders and stuff, and because otherwise you'd lose everything. And then search became a lot better in the operating systems, and now there's so many files and so many micro files. Search has gotten a lot worse again, and the indexes are a lot worse. And now we're moving to these LLMs where they need clean, structured text and ways of doing context. And so, Matt, you built your whole knowledge core thing. Have you revisited that? Is that part of your agent pedagogy thing? Is it a separate thing? Because you've done a lot of work on knowledge management. I've taken some ideas from you into my own system, but there's been some headlines that are getting all the press because of famous people that have been releasing memory systems as well this week.
Yeah, and there's literally these 3 concepts. It's compilation, retrieval, and continuity. So compilation is the organization. It's the sticking things into a wiki, like Karpathy's headlines, and the idea of knowing where everything lives. That's compilation. It's another way of looking at this is it could be a map or a graph of the content, where the thing to think about there is can the system turn all of your messy source material into something maintainable and understandable. So that's one thing, and that's what Mila's system, the whole MemPalace, that's what it tries to achieve, is the idea of like providing this compiled space similar to Karpathy's wikis. The second thing is retrieval. So there's no point having it stored if you can't get it out again, and you can't get it out quick, which is really just, can the system find it? Like, does it understand your structure? Can it search through it? Can it navigate through it? So when the agents are actually looking through your file directories, can it quickly just search for a keyword and find which file has that keyword, filter those results? The models know how to do all this stuff with code, but having the infrastructure to make it faster and frictionless is really important. And then that third thing, continuity, I think this is the most important, because it's what Richard was talking about with his book writing. Every time he sits down to write some stuff, he's going to have to recompile all of his thoughts and his previous notes and all that stuff, instead of saying, hey, I'm just going to continue to run on chapter 8 here. What were we talking about last time? And then find all of your notes and details on chapter 8.
That's exactly it. That is such a good description. I remember there was a number of themes running through my book. And when you get over 50,000 words, it's a lot of rereading and stuff like that. And so I did a bit of a search test to globally replace certain phrases that I should not have been using for copyright or lawsuit or just pure nastiness reasons. And the speed to me to edit. I mean, I've actually written books before and written big documents before, and I always hand it to a better editor than me, a PR specialist, a writing specialist. And they never got what I wanted. They always came back with crap, and they're biased, or what I would call confirmation bias, or their cognitive dissonance around the subject that I'm trying to talk about. And that would annoy the hell out of me. I work with my AI agents and they have no cognitive dissonance. They have a little bit. They have mine, which is what I want them to have.
Yeah. Another cool thing with the continuity, which is what I have built into my core, is the idea of preserving that thread of work, which is what we just said, but also decisions and open loops. So open threads, like here's something I'm going to come back to. Because what a lot of people do, like if you think of writing notes in a paper book, unless you're going to go and use liquid paper and like, blank out all of your previous writing or cover it in scribble before you write your next note, most people just append. They just keep appending their thoughts and their notes, their observations. If you don't do that with your digital systems, your agents won't see your decision-making process to help analyze the solution that you're trying to get towards and like the path that you took to get there.
It's interesting because you mentioned the Hermes thing, and one of the things that Hermes does with its memory system is it limits you to X number of characters because it wants it to prioritize and just pick the most important memories. But you will lose context in that. That's the whole issue with compaction. So it's an interesting model where it's like we want the agents to choose the most important memories, but it means you will lose memories. You will lose some of that color and context and contour. You mentioned a few names, Karpathy and Mila, and people out there might have no idea what you were talking about, Matt. So Andrej,
just Andre.
I'm pretty sure that's Andre, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, Andre.
He is the previous director of AI at Tesla, founding team at OpenAI, and he's got a PhD from Stanford. But he really does he? It just looks like flowers to me. Oh no, there he is. He's amongst them.
It's a Renoir of himself.
So he wrote this big X article around how he's managing memory in his LLMs using Obsidian, which you put me onto, Matt, and wiki-links and so on, and how to connect all your files. And so the whole internet, because every time Karpathy says something, they all freaking lose their minds because of his reputation and his runs on the board. And so everyone's like, oh, this is amazing. This is this revolutionary way of doing memory management. And in the same week, we've had Mila Jovovic. Really? Come out with her MemPalace repo on GitHub, which is based on a Greek actor's method. There's the whole memory palace. It's like you hear about like Sherlock Holmes, and he's got like the mind palace where he has rooms and things, and he can go in there and manage all his memories. So actors use that apparently for remembering their scripts. She's partnered with someone and built this model that they put out there that, creates this virtual abstraction of rooms and places and stores memories in different wings and halls of a virtual building and so on. And that apparently is doing very well in some of the testing benchmarks because everything that gets released is, of course, the best at all the benchmarks. I did see one guy on LinkedIn go, I put it to the test and I was looking for certain things and I ran it against grep, which is like just a console, like a bash terminal search. And he said, like, grep just destroyed it. And if you're looking for specific content and specific keywords, those raw terminal search tools are just going to win. But it's when you want themes and ideas that are connected to one another.
It's the context, exactly.
Those sort of inferred search parameters you're not going to get from a straight word search. And so again, it is horses for courses. There's not one search method that works for everything. It is this ability to manage these things. So I went to my AI system and said, hey, I want a comparison between what I'm doing with my memory system and what Karpathy's saying and what MemPalace says. And so it actually gave us, you talk about the different layers, Matt, it gave me a bit of a breakdown and comparison of the three, where it talks about, raw preservation of the original content, the compilation layer, how you're navigating it, the cross-referencing, the compounding, the temporal, and the linting and the health stuff. So they're basically doing things quite differently. And I was really happy with my system because it said I've independently built something that covers 80% of what both systems do. Huzzah! There's my win of the week, Mano. My memory system is already an awesome hybrid of both. But obviously then it goes on and there's a few things I can steal. And that's the thing with all of these systems. It's that additive nature of these systems. It's like not that one is better, one is worse. It's like, okay, that's cool. How can I grow on that? How can I build on that? Matt with his own PyAgent sort of coding system that I'm sure he's going to put out his GitHub and open source and become just as famous as Mila and Karpathy anytime soon. But just like I plan to do with Sargent.
It's very interesting. I had Savio, one of our listeners, ring me during the week. I think, Dave, you're scheduled to have a chat with him soon, and he's working on very similar. How do I organize myself? How can I help people organize themselves? I have executives call me and say, like you and I spoke about, how do I get my LLM to talk to every email I ever sent and give me a knowledge base that I can draw from and work on. And it's funny, I find as a non-technical member of the team that everyone's racing to the same thing. And there's a lot of serendipity and there's a lot of double up in work. And there are no commercially available tools unless you do it yourself to deliver what we're asking for right now.
The closest are things like co-work, and like a lot of like my system is actually co-work's doing a lot of that heavy lifting. So I've got this memory system where I have these wiki-links and these decision logs and all these things that are building out that you saw there. But the engine that I'm using at the moment is co-work because it's running them as scheduled tasks. It's going and checking my systems automatically for me. Before that, I was in anti-gravity using Google Gemini, and I just had to manually run the tasks and stuff and create the agents. And so it is these things, these become systems. And I think we said this last week, we've got to start building business systems, not just AI processes or AI driven processes or whatever we said.
They've got to be available. They've got to be time scheduled.
We've got to think about like, what is the value this thing drives for me? So you can build all these amazing systems, but do they drive any actual value? Everyone wants to build an agent, and I've been talking to organizations that are building these little agent projects here and there, but they're not really sure they're getting any value. And you measure adoption and usage, where you go, great, you're burning some tokens, you used it, did it generate value and make life better for you or not? Like for me, because it goes through and checks my calendar and my emails and has all this full memory knowledge of my business decisions and what businesses are doing and transcripts from calls and everything. I had a great meeting this week. And before that meeting, it said, here's a dossier. And I went and did a full background research on the person I was meeting with. And then off that, it's come through that there's a follow-up call where I'm going to meet with a few other people. And so it picked that email up and went, oh, you're going to meet with this other people. I'm going to get Lois, your researcher, to go back. And so now it's given me a full dossier of all the background information on these people, just automated. I didn't specifically say, go research these people. It just knows because I built these systems that drive real value for me, because now it gives me background and context before I go into a conversation. So that's a value to me, but that might be of no value to someone in a different role.
That's exactly right. And the stuff that I always say, where it's a primitives-based principled approach, you know, like what are the concepts that are underlying behind everything? But realistically, the value you're saying is, what do you want? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Are you solving the problem? Are you getting what you want? And where's the friction? Like, there's really only those things. Like, you can go and get a faster car and drive to the shops quicker, but is that solving like a problem? You know, there's not many reasons to go and just jump to new tools or to fall prey to media releases. I think that's the right wording to use.
It's like all those people, Matt, that wanted to run their house via Windows because it was really cool, until they had a power failure and they couldn't get in their house.
A great book to, I guess, digest all of that is called The Crux. It's about project management or effective project management, and it's all about the crux of the issue. So what's the one thing, like not just a constraint, but what's the constraint of the business? What's the crux of the business that is really stopping everything from moving on? It's a very, very good book. I've listened to it. I'm still reading it, but very, very good approach to, okay, what's the crux of the issue? What are we actually solving for? Rather than solving or over-engineering or over-optimizing something that is irrelevant, that only drives about 2% or the 20% instead of the 80%.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like all of these different things, like the Crux and Hormozy's like way of breaking down businesses, there's going to be so many others. There's another book called Traction. I know it's really good for that too. All of these things, like the way that I look at this stuff now, and you guys probably have similar, maybe differing opinions, is how can I turn the frameworks, the knowledge, the actionable steps, the questions, how can I turn them into something that is systematized, whether it's agentic or not? It's just there, ready to go, so that if I have a question about my business or somebody else's, all of a sudden now we're going through the Crux, we're going through Hormozy, we're going through Traction, we're going through everything, and getting it a merged, compiled, grounded, actionable result.
I came across StoryBrand, and I really liked what Mila was saying about the way he approaches pitches and elevator pitches and one-liners and all that kind of stuff, and presenting the problem that you solve before people don't care about your story and stuff I know and stuff I've heard before many times, but the way he presented was really clear. So I'm like, okay, I need to find out more about the story brand framework, which he's done YouTube videos out the wazoo. Like there's so much content out there for me to grab and gather and then get that into my system. So when I go to Kat, my copywriter and my PR person, she thinks about that. She thinks about those concepts when writing any copy on my behalf for any of my websites or LinkedIn posts or anything like that, because that's, that's really great methodologies and frameworks that I can then adapt and insert, and with the context of everything else I'm doing, makes them more powerful. Whereas if like StoryBrand have their own AI tool, which I'm sure is fabulous because I've trained it really hard on the StoryBrand framework, but it also doesn't have any of my context. I'm going to have to go and find all my context and choose which selective context I give it versus taking the framework and just sticking it in my system that already has all of my context.
Yeah, and I would say, Dave, your personality is what's most important there. Story branding framework, formats, the format for a proposal, a tender, everything. They've all got formats. I remember hearing Elton John talk about how he knows how to write a hit song. He knows where to start. He knows where to finish. He knows it should be in the middle, all that sort of stuff. And he said he could write a conceivably hit song every day of the week. But unless it's got something unique that's emotional to him or is triggering in the industry or relates to someone in the thing, it'll do nothing. Right? Yeah. And so, we use these frameworks, and it's great that people offer them to us. But at the end of the day, it's a piece of you that we want, Dave.
Right. And the advantage that we have with these tools is, if you're creating any content, if you've got any back catalog of content, Richard, you've just written a whole book, you can use those as assets for it to train on your voice and your style and what makes you unique. So we have these video transcripts, every podcast, I can actually say, go and pull all the extracts of Dave. That's how I talk. So that's literally me talking. That is my voice. So when you go and write things, find the patterns, find the ways I talk, find the catchphrases, all that kind of stuff, and adapt those into any writing style that you do.
I'm about to start on the audio book. Do you mean I actually don't have to read my own book? I can just throw some AI voice at it?
You can, but it's probably going to be woeful, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, no, it's much more fun when I make mistakes. That's where people enjoy themselves.
I hate when, I haven't listened to a lot of audiobooks, and we should wrap up. We hit the hour. But you get the author who reads out the prelude or the prologue or the intro, and then you go, oh, this is really good. I can connect to them. That's their content. That's real. And then it switches over to a generic paid voice actor, and you're like, oh, this is crap now.
Oh, no. The same thing happened with the Diary of a CEO. He read, I think, the first third of the book. Halfway through a chapter, it's still part of the same sentence, essentially. It just cuts over. And I'm like, no. The rest of it felt so, unsettling.
That makes no sense, does it? No, that's silly. Yeah. I intend to read my own audiobook, and I don't intend to do it in a monotone way. I intend to do it with inflection, emotion, and passion, because that's what connects us. Not the words, not the information, the other stuff. And that's what I'm going to inject into my
You get to add the little gems too. I know, which one was it? I think it was Noah Kogan on his book, The $100 Million Weekend, or the $1 Million Weekend. And as he's reading it, he's like, oh, since I've written this, I've also learned this, this, and this. And then you keep sharing because the stories will come up as you're reading it. So it's almost more valuable.